Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Spread Zone. March is here, and we're here for one thing: good numbers and clean tickets. So it's Jackson with me today.
How's it going, Riz?
Tim and Anthony are on vacation, but you're the guy anyway.
Let's just run a little pick and roll, a little two-man game, a little high-low. This. I think we're going to be just fine.
Of course we are. Last year you were with us. You went 14-2 on your picks.
Yeah.
The Spread Zone.
Yeah, a lot to live up to.
You're the guy.
Yeah.
So just, we're recording this. It's Wednesday, 11 a.m. Central, so we're not covering anything that already happened. Tuesday's first four is done. Today we're hitting tonight's first four. Then we'll get ahead of Thursday and Friday round of 64, and we'll wrap with a couple price-dependent futures. The episode, of course, is sponsored by FanDuel Sportsbook. All lines we mentioned are FanDuel, and these lines are moving quick. So let's get going. Tonight is the second night of the first four in Dayton. Same gym, tight rims, weird sight lines, and you're basically betting nerves and shot making. So the games tonight: Prairie View A&M versus Lehigh. That's at 5:40 p.m. Central, and then you have Miami, Ohio versus SMU at 8:15 Central Time. Again, we're recording at 11 a.m. So if the number moves, the pick might still be right, but the price might not be.
Right. If last night was any indicator of what's to come in these first four games of Dayton, tight ball games. The UMBC Howard game came down to the very last second, with UMBC, who's famous, of course, for being the first 16 seed to defeat the 1 seed when they beat Virginia in 2018. They had a chance to score right at the end to force overtime. They could not. Then Texas was beating NC State by about 9 points with just a few minutes to go, and they could not get the ball in bounds out of the baseline. They couldn't do it. NC State was hitting every three under the sun, and Texas was able to hold on. But if those games are any indicator, we're going to have some tight ball games today.
Well, let's look at the first one here. Prairie View A&M versus Lehigh. This is a classic first four situation. Short spread, neutral floor, late game free throws matter. I'd rather be holding points than laying them in a game that could turn into a coin flip.
Agreed.
In the last 4 minutes. For me, it's Prairie View A&M plus 3.5.
I agree. I like Lehigh only because they had CJ McCollum once upon a time, and they defeated Duke as a 15 seed. But I'm going to go ride with you with Prairie View A&M.
All right, listen, to be clear, if this drops to plus 2.5, I like it less.
Sure.
If you could still find that plus 3.5, that's the buy zone for me.
Yeah.
You agree with that?
Yep, I'm with you on that.
All right, second game, Miami, Ohio versus SMU. This is where I'm being disciplined here. I'm passing on this game.
Really?
I'm calling this a pass unless I see a better number. So it's Miami. I got plus 7.5.
7. Okay, so it's moved up.
Yeah.
Okay.
I got plus 7.5, and I just looked it up. So I'm calling a pass on this unless I get a better number. First four games can swing on a 2-minute run, and I don't know. The 7.5 scares me.
I think it's scaring a lot of people right now. Miami, of course, coming off their first loss in their conference tournament game, and they looked real shaky down the stretch to complete the undefeated regular season. I kind of like that people are getting scared off Miami a little bit, especially if that numbers continue to rise. What I do really like is the over. I saw it earlier at 163.5, and SMU, coached by Andy Enfield, doesn't love to play a lot of defense. That's not their strong suit, and if Miami can knock them down from deep, they're really, really dangerous. So if you're scared of the spread, I like the over in that game.
All right, so I'm scared of the spread, so I would take the over.
Yeah, I like the over
on this game. So as of now, my first four card is Prairie View plus 3.5, and then the over on the Miami SMU game.
I love it.
Great. All right, so let's move off the first four. Round of 64 starting tomorrow, first full day of round of 64. This is where the public starts laying big spreads and the back doors start opening. So of course, we're not going to bet every game. I'm targeting numbers that I think are playable right now at FanDuel. So the games I would be looking at, and I'll start with High Point. High Point,
Wisconsin
versus Wisconsin.
Yep.
High Point plus 10.5. So in round one, double-digit dogs are live because favorites tighten up early.
Sure.
And if the dog can score at all, you could sit in that, 6 to 12 point range all night and still have cash. I'm not saying Wisconsin can't win. I'm saying 10.5 is margin. What do you say on that?
Wisconsin's really good. But Wisconsin has a thing right now where they play up to competition. They're the kind of the king slayers of the Big Ten so far this season. And they also have a tendency to play down a little bit. High Point, I don't know if you saw their student broadcasting team when they won their conference tournament, but it was absolutely electric. So a lot of people are going to be in High Point's corner. I'm wondering if that's moving the betting line at all, because a lot of people, of course, when it comes to March Madness, like to ride on vibes. And I'd be lying if I say I haven't done that before. But I think with this one, I still like Wisconsin minus 10.5. I think they're a really, really, really good basketball team coached by Greg.
So slow grind where Wisconsin covers or Wisconsin wins, but doesn't separate, game type.
Yeah, I think it could be a situation where it's maybe a tight game kind of throughout, and then Wisconsin outlasts them just because they're just way more talented.
All right, the next play I'm looking at for Thursday, Hawaii, Arkansas.
Hawaii and Arkansas.
Hawaii plus 15.5.
Yeah.
This is a big spread in a neutral site tournament game bet. You get, foul game. You get foul game weirdness, rotation management, and late threes that could flip a cover. If it's 18, I love it. At 15.5, I still think it's playable. Do you think Hawaii can hang around, or is Arkansas the kind of athlete gap that turns into 20 plus?
It's a good question. What always gives me trepidation with a team like Arkansas, betting them one way or another, is that they have a guy, Darius Acuff, who's the SEC Player of the Year. He's going to be a lottery pick likely in the NBA next year. Guys like that are real X factors, because if they give you their A stuff, the 15.5 point spread is nothing. But if Hawaii, who's had plenty of time to scout Arkansas's tape, is finding a way to shut down Acuff, they still have plenty of talent to outscore him, but then that 15.5 number comes into question. It's dangerous to me to bet one way or another on a spread this big, but if I had to, Riz, I still think I'm rocking with Arkansas minus 15.5.
All right. Next game I'm looking at, VCU versus North Carolina.
I was hoping you'd bring this one up.
Short dog spot here, VCU plus 2.5.
Sure.
In a game this tight, I'm usually choosing between spread and money line based on price, but at 2.5, you cover one possession loss, and that's valuable in a tournament setting with late fouls and variance. Are you taking VCU with the points, sprinkling the money line, or laying UNC? This is minus 2.5.
Yeah, this is a situation where people, I think, are scared of UNC because they lost their best player, Caleb Wilson.
Right.
Texas Tech is in a similar spot because they lost their best player, JT Toppin. Both teams have shown that they can be really, really good even without those guys. And if that number is moving a team like North Carolina down to minus 2.5 against VCU, to me, you got to take advantage of that. I think North Carolina is more than 2.5 points better than VCU. I know I'm taking a lot of favorites right now, and that will change. But
so you're laying the 2.5.
I'm laying the 2.5 all day.
All right, my final Thursday game. It's the late game. St. Louis versus Georgia. St. Louis University SLU. I'm taking St. Louis plus 2.5. Same idea, tight spread, neutral court, one run decides it. So if you're asking me which team I trust to play composed basketball for 40 minutes, I'm comfortable taking the points here. You want St. Louis too, or are you back in Georgia?
People are going to hate me. This is a matchup. This is like iron sharpens iron. They play a very similar style of basketball where they want to run and they want to run and they want to run. And whichever team's transition defense starts to lack a little bit, that's where you're going to see leaks in the game. That's where you're going to see either team going on like an 8-0, 10-0 run, because both teams are capable. If this game doesn't feature an 8-10-0 run from each team, I would be generally surprised. I think that Georgia, their best bet on getting out early on SLU, who struggled early in games, is to just go out and run them off the court. That's what they're going to try to do, but that's what SLU likes to do.
St. Louis SLU the whole season has been a second half of the game team.
Especially as of late, I'm going to have to go with Georgia minus 2.5. I hate to do it because I really want SLU to be, have a little run in this tournament. I love Coach Josh Schertz, and I've loved the way they've played all year, but they've been a little down as of late, and I think Georgia, the styles are just so similar that I can't say one way or another, but I think I like Georgia minus 2.5.
All right, what else are you looking at on Thursday?
I love Illinois covering the 24.5 against Penn. I know that sounds odd because it's such a big number, but I think Illinois wants to make a statement in this tournament. I think Brad Underwood is a really, really, really good basketball coach, and they are so talented. This is a team that a lot of people had in the non-conference as like a real tournament contender, and I still think they're that way.
I see people saying this is a Final Four team.
And I think they have the talent to absolutely do that. Their problem has been giving up leads late in games. So if you're looking at that and you maybe were like, well, maybe Illinois can go out to a 25-point lead, but can they hold it? I think they're going to make a statement that they're changing the narrative around them, and they're going to come out and dominate against Fran McCaffrey and Penn.
Anything else for Thursday?
Anything else for Thursday?
Or should we move on to Friday? We can move on to Friday.
The interesting one I kind of am looking at is something in the Texas A&M St. Mary's game. This is where a lot of people are up and down on. I think a lot of people are high on St. Mary's, and as they should be. They're a fantastic basketball club with a lot of March experience. People know St. Mary's through their tournament success. Mm-hmm. I think Texas A&M is a little bit underrated, getting 3.5 points. I like that number. I think they could probably win this game outright, but 3.5, I think it'll be a really, really, really tight battle. I like Bucky Ball and Texas A&M.
All right, let's move on to Friday's games, but first we'll take a break. Spread Zone sponsored by FanDuel Sportsbook. March lines move fast. If you miss the number, don't chase a worse one just because the game is on your screen. Bet responsibly. Keep your unit size consistent. If you or somebody you know has a gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER. We'll take a break. We'll talk Friday, round of 64, next on the Spread Zone. And we're back on the Spread Zone, presented by FanDuel. My name is Riz. That there is Jackson, taking the place of two people, Anthony and Tim, who are on vacation. But I'm glad you're here. You are the college basketball NCAA tournament guru for the Spread Zone. So Friday, more round of 64. My first play is Northern Iowa versus St. John's.
This is my favorite game of the tournament. I feel so strongly about this, it hurts.
Okay, well, let me hear what you have to say first.
I love Northern Iowa in this game. I mean, capital L, love Northern Iowa in this game. I really like them to win outright. That's the 12-5. There's always a 12-5 that goes the 12's way, and I think it's Northern Iowa. The St. John's have been playing outstanding basketball.
Right, and again, this is another team that people are predicting to make a big run.
Absolutely. A Big East champion getting a 5 seed, that's really strange. People thought for sure a 4 seed for Rick Pitino and the Johnnies.
Well, and they were saying during Selection Sunday that this was the one seeding that people were kind of questioning the fact that they didn't get a number 4.
Yeah, and I think they're right to question it. I think they are deserving a number 4. This is more a credit to Northern Iowa. I've seen them play recently, and the way they move the ball around, they don't care who scores. All they care about is putting the ball through the rim. They move the ball so well. They have all the ingredients of a team that could break brackets, as they say. And I unfortunately think for St. John's fans that's going to be against the Red Storm.
This is a moving line. It was plus 10.5 yesterday for Northern Iowa. Yeah. It's at plus 9.5 now.
Yeah, I think this is a classic, like, people are scared of the double digit with St. John's. So they're like, now that it's in that 9.5, 8.5 territory, people will start betting up St. John's. I love Northern Iowa plus 9.5. I think if not win, they're going to scare them.
This is a take the points, trust the math spot.
Yeah.
I'm going to take the same thing. Northern Iowa plus 9.5. Do you think Northern Iowa wins, or is it just a close?
Oh, I think they win.
You think they win?
I think they win. But for the purposes of bookkeeping here, I will say plus 9.5 will be my official play. But in my personal bracket, I have Northern Iowa moving on.
All right, my next play, Kansas versus California Baptist.
Yep.
I'm laying one, Kansas minus 14.5.
You're laying the Jayhawks?
I'm laying the Jayhawks.
So this is interesting because people have been talking a lot because Missouri is playing here in St. Louis and wondering how they got that. The team that's actually closest to their campus is Cal Baptist. This game's being played in San Diego. Kansas has looked up and down this year. You don't know if Darren Peterson, their lottery pick player, is going to be playing. And if he is, what's his availability going to look like? Is he on a minutes restriction? I kind of like the California Baptist getting 14.5 in this one. So I think I'm going to take the opposite side again.
I'm going to lay the 14.5. This is a physical mismatch plus a talent gap bet.
Undoubtedly.
Some 4-13, some 5-12 games are chaos. Some of the favorite gets up 12 early and never looks back.
Yep.
If Kansas plays this clean,
yeah, they're just too big and too physical.
I think this is a blowout.
Yeah, sure, I could see it, but some about it just tells me I like the 14.
So I mean, listen, I'll say big spreads mean backdoor risk, and if you bet this, understand what you're holding.
Yeah, for sure.
So you are taking the 14.5 then.
Yeah, I'm so on Thursday I was heavy on the favorites. On Friday I like the underdog.
All right. Anything else you see for Friday's games?
I think the Missouri-Miami game, it's the final game of the first round. It tips off, it says 9:10. You know it's going to be later here in St. Louis. Missouri playing essentially in their backyard at Enterprise Center against Miami, a team that they also, like SLU, match up with very similar styles. Miami, though, really can't shoot from outside. They like to score 2 points. They want to beat you by 2, death by 1,000 paper cuts. They're really well coached. They have great backcourt play. I think I like Missouri plus 1.5. I think Missouri is just one more player stepping up from being a really dangerous team. Mark Mitchell has been so consistent, but they just need one other guy, whether that be Trent Pierce, whether it be T.O. Barrett, whether it be Jacob Cruz from deep. If any of those guys are able to step up, I love Missouri plus 1.5.
All right, let's leave it there, and we'll take a final break. We'll come back. We'll talk some futures. Price dependent only.
Sure.
We'll just, we'll keep our eye on some stuff. Again, the show is presented by FanDuel Sportsbook. Set a unit size, don't chase, and don't turn March into a bankroll bonfire. It's the Spread Zone, brought to you by FanDuel. All right, we're back on the Spread Zone, presented by FanDuel. Jackson is with me this morning. So futures only if the price is right. And because, we're recording on Wednesday, the 18th at 11 a.m., these are very much check FanDuel and decide plays. So here are my triggers. Vanderbilt to make the Sweet 16 only if it's plus money.
Yeah. Yep, because their path would follow. They would have to beat the opening game against McNeese and then the winner of the Nebraska-Troy game. I love them if it's Nebraska, and I absolutely love them if it's Troy. So I'm with you on that play to reach the Sweet 16.
VCU to make the Sweet 16, but only if it's still a big number.
Sure. I think if they can get past North Carolina, they'll have the winner of Illinois-Penn. Toss up again. If you're doubting Illinois, I think that's a good play. I just think North Carolina is going to be there instead of VCU.
And one kind of big swing here is Iowa State to make the Final Four only if it's a plus 300 or better. Yeah,
I think if you're looking at that region, I think people are a little down on Michigan right now after losing Kaysen, one of their guards. But, they have their path is an interesting path. They'll have to go through Virginia, who I love, one of the most stifling defenses in the entire country. But, for value play, I think that Iowa State is a really, really good team coached by TJ Otzelberger.
Yeah, I'm not forcing futures if the market's already
agreed.
Collected.
I don't think there's any. I think, again, last year we had a very chalky Final Four. Mm-hmm. I think it's probably going to be similar this year.
Any futures you're adding today? Are you going to stay game to game?
There's something, I usually go game to game, but I like throwing one or two futures out there. I have a really early season future on Michigan State to make the Final Four, weirdly enough. Mm-hmm. I'm not as confident as I was early in the season, but one I like a lot.
What was that at?
It was in the 4 digits. I can't remember off the top of my head, but if it happens, just know drinks are on me.
Right.
UCLA. They're coached by this guy, Mick Cronin. He's kind of crazy. And by kind of crazy, I mean he's really crazy. But he has a history of winning in the tournament in 2021. They were an 11 seed playing in the first 4 game, and they made it all the way to the Final Four. Were only stopped from going to the championship because of a Jalen Suggs Gonzaga half-court bank shot to win. There's something about what he does in March, and at plus 550 to make the Elite Eight, I kind of love that. I like their path. I like the way UCLA has been playing as of late. Give me UCLA to make the Elite Eight, only if that number stays above plus 500.
Right. So again, you're a game-to-game guy.
For sure.
But that's the future you'd be throwing out there.
And that would likely feature a second-round matchup of UCLA versus UConn, where it'd be Dan Hurley, who might be the craziest, versus Mick Cronin, who also has an argument to be made.
So crazy versus crazy. Crazy
versus crazy. Only one's going to come out alive, and I don't know who it's going to be.
Who wins? People watching that game.
Damn right.
All right, so that is it for the Spread Zone. Subscribe, rate, review, and remember, price matters. Jackson, thank you very much, buddy.
Hey, thank you.
All right, we'll talk to you next week.
We provide information about sports betting for entertainment purposes only. Please confirm gambling regulations in your state of residence. To participate in sports gaming, you must be 21 years of age or older and be physically present in a state where sports betting is legal. If you or someone you know has a sports betting or gambling problem, please call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit www.ncpgambling.org for more information and further assistance.